Welcome to Matters Financial, the Geopolitical from Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me start with, we've got quite an extraordinary day today. A lot of people are calling it a trifecta of events and Super Thursday. That trifecta includes the general election in the United Kingdom, where Jeremy Corbyn has made up some ground. Some pollsters are seeing a very big win by Theresa May. There's a huge divergence. I think pollsters are quite confused these days, and I'll come to the reason why. You've got the Comey testimony in the US, but we've already had a preview of that, and I don't think it crosses the threshold where the Republicans are going to act against the president, although the allegations are serious. And being a lawyer, I mean, this is an obstruction of justice in my view. But I don't think that in the current political dispensation that the dial's going to get moved. And of course we have the ECB. Yesterday, a rumour flashed around that we're going to reduce their inflation forecast. That's to be expected across the world, frankly. And the euro weakened, but then subsequently recovered. The euro is now at 112.51, but obviously Draghi's up, so he's going to move that thing around, I imagine. What's interesting is asset volatility. Look at this. This is from Bloomberg. It's at historic lows, and it reminds me of that phrase, halcyon days, which I looked up subsequently, and it was that calm period for about a week in between storms. And it was a little week that the gods gave. So do read that, actually. It's a very interesting story. Qatar cut to AA minus from AA by S&P. Qatar puts its military on the highest state of alert over fears of imminent incursion. Turkey has come to their support and I think is going to airlift some military personnel into Doha. Yesterday's news that Saudi Arabia has issued an ultimatum to Qatar, listing 10 demands, among which that Qatar end all ties with the Muslim Brotherhood, that is a fissure. Turkey is also supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas, has prompted a dramatic response by the small Gulf nation. And according to a just released report by Arabic CNN and confirmed locally, US officials have said they've observed increased Qatari military activity as the country placed its forces on the highest state of alert over fears of an imminent military incursion. Things have moved at incredible speed. Gaddafi has warned Qatar. This is interesting. This is from 2011. Gaddafi warned Qatar about backing the British and the French and the US against him in 2011. You may regret this when it's too late. A little bit tongue-in-cheek, I said if I were Qatar, I would be executing an asymmetric financial response, like shorting bucket loads of crude oil and putting enormous pressure on Riyadh. But I think Qatar is going to be looking for a golden ladder with which to climb down. I don't think the Deputy Crown Prince is going to give them a golden one, if he gives them one at all. December 2016, I said optimal portfolio looks like this: long Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at another record. We're now, I think, above $3,000. And saying for foreign current exchange analysts trying to use traditional methods to value the so-called cryptocurrency and its digital cousins, it may be all of the above, but it's not quite a currency. It is difficult to use standard FX valuation frameworks that are based on the fundamental drivers of the currency, like relative productivity or terms of trade of the country, because there are no such concepts, said Juan Prado, a New York-based currency strategist at Barclays Capital. Home thoughts: Denmark has the happiest people in the world. 92% of its population belongs to a social group. Apparently that's a high correlation with your happiness. What I've learned in all these years is that 95% of your personal happiness, 95% of your personal happiness is defined by your personal attitude, and that's a fact. I've met people in the most trying of circumstances who've been happy. It's just their perspective on life. Other people in wonderful circumstances, unhappy. He will forever be jealous, says Shakur 89. And then on that note, Bermuda makes its case as the new Hampton-style getaway. My first business trip anywhere in the world was to Bermuda for an offsite. Some folks at Credit Suisse, it was quite a trip. Political reflections. Borzu photo shows moment of explosion, this is yesterday, by alleged suicide bomber at Khomeini Mausoleum south of Tehran. This is like a deeply symbolic strike at the heart of the Islamic State of Iran. Quite an extraordinary one. Plenty of questions to be asked. Polls on eve of UK elections suggest Prime Minister May will boost majority. This is Reuters, but we'll come to some other polls. Of 6 polls published on Wednesday, 2 showed the Conservatives widening their lead over Labour, 2 showed a narrowing, and 2 were unchanged. But they mostly suggested she would increase the small majority she inherited from David Cameron last year, shortly after the surprise referendum decision to take Britain out of the European Union. Polling firm ICN said Conservatives' wide lead of 46% to 34% for Labour would give May a majority of 96 seats, up sharply from the working majority of 17 she has had until now, and bigger than any Conservative majority since the days when Mrs. Thatcher was Prime Minister. The Independents said the lead was 44-34, get a majority of 74. YouGov, which found the Conservatives' lead had increased 7 percentage points from 4 during the weekend, also said May would bolster her power in Parliament. The 7-point Conservative lead is the same as at the previous election, but we think it is likely they will nevertheless be returned with an increased majority. YouGov Director Anthony Wells. Excuse me. At the other end of the spectrum, Survation said the Conservatives' lead stood at just 1 percentage point, echoing 2 polls it published in recent days which called into question whether May would get a majority at all. That was creating a bit of a wobble. Now, what is this difference? It's all about the main difference between the polls which give the Conservatives a big lead and ones which, such as Survation, would suggest a tighter race, is largely down to varying estimates of how many young voters who typically support Labour are likely to actually vote on Thursday. So the point about it all is, can Jeremy Corbyn turn on, and I think he has up to a point, and turn out the youth vote? And if he does both of those things, then Survation will be right. If the turnout goes along the lines of the Brexit route, he's going to suffer an almighty defeat. I thought some of his remarks had real traction, in particular the one about the correlation between foreign policy and domestic terrorism. Election poll latest, Theresa May will win biggest Tory landslide since Thatcher, final survey predicts. That's Comres, 10-point lead, indicating a 74-seat majority versus Survation, Conservatives 41.3%, Labour 40.4%, but they are the extreme of that continuum. So we're going to find out. South Korea announced that it was suspending the deployment of the US missile shield. North Korea responded by firing multiple ballistic missiles. So that should focus President Moon's mind. Can President Xi Jinping of China pry South Korea's new leader away from Washington's orbit? Certainly looks like it. Interesting piece in Bloomberg, the Saudi prince, the sheikh, and the Gulf renegade. The choreographed statements by Saudi Arabia and three allies to quarantine Qatar just after 6 a.m. on June 5 were not signed, but there was no mistake about who was behind them. The move to halt air and sea transport and shut the tiny Gulf nation's only land border carried the fingerprints of two of the world's most powerful leaders. Saudi Arabia's Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the de facto head of the UAE. The coordinated action underscores the growing authority of both men, whose countries control vast amounts of oil wealth and buy weapons from the US. Turning the screws on the world's richest country per capita, thanks to its abundant reserves of natural gas, puts the Saudis and Emiratis in direct confrontation with a country that remains a key American ally and which hosts the US Central Command. It also allows bin Salman and bin Zayed to send a clear message to their 37-year-old Qatari counterpart, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. In this neighborhood, we run the show, and I think it is as elementary as that point of fact. The name of the game here is the rise of this duo as architects of regional policy, said Ayan Kamel. This is unprecedented. What the Gulf countries have largely lacked is detailed strategic processes. This was much more planned. The track record of the new assertive policy isn't stellar. The Saudi-led war in Yemen against pro-Iranian rebels is stuck in a bloody stalemate. And in Syria, their allies are on the retreat in the face of forces backed by Russia and Iran. Egypt has been in turmoil after the UAE and Saudi Arabia poured billions of dollars in aid to support al-Sisi. This Saudi Emirati assertive foreign policy approach is largely driven by personalities. That's my view as well. Carries a risk if, for example, King Salman is succeeded by a monarch who doesn't share MBS's vision. Failure in Yemen could also undermine MBS's position in Saudi Arabia. Thanks to Trump's recent visit, they seem to feel that he has their back because he's taken an anti-Islamist, anti-Iran discourse. They seem to think this means they can do whatever they want. That's the key point. On the 8th of May, I was writing about my price target of $32 a barrel. And I said the OPEC go-go days of Sheikh Yamani's prayer beads and Delphic pronouncements belong to yesteryear. Mohammed Sanusi Barkinder, the current OPEC Secretary General, is a poor imitation of Yamani and is playing with a set of cards that is stacked against him. Reserves have been depleted from Abuja to Riyadh, from Luanda to Caracas, and in all the oil-producing capitals in the world. So many capitals are fiddling while sitting on a tinderbox and playing with matches. That's what I think. The Deputy Crown Prince was quoted on Al Arabiya about Iran. How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar? I said, this is deluded thinking at a time when things could seriously fall apart. Then I quoted, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere a ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The combination of the attack in Tehran and the split among the Gulf monarchies is another layer of fissure and confrontation in the region. Members of the Qatari royal family, the Thanis, believe that in 1995, Saudi Arabia helped engineer a coup attempt in Doha. The Emir at the time had recently carried out a coup against his own father, and the Qataris, who arrested several Saudi citizens in connection with the later coup attempt, believed that the Saudis were plotting to restore the father. In the aftermath, Qatar gradually adopted the policy that its officials and analysts refer to as hedging. While embracing the overarching alliance with Washington and Riyadh, Doha has also opened relations with opposing players in the region, including the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Taliban, and the Iranian-backed Hezbollah. Clockwork. The London Bridge attackers named one known to MI5, another attacker found dead with his ID. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro dollar 112.54, dollar index 96.78. We've been around here for a few sessions now. Japanese yen, where's that? 109.73. A Swiss franc 0.9652. The pound 129.52. I'm inclined to think that's going to 128, whatever it happens here. Aussie dollar 0.7544. India rupee 64.435, South Korean 111.2640. It's been unperturbed by the escalation in the Korean Peninsula. Brazilian real 326.86, Egyptian pound 18.1290, and the rand 12.8290. Dollar index, we are at 96.674. I'm expecting a trading rebound. And I think Comey, where we've seen the transcript of what he's saying, can't land a killer punch. Geopolitical risk is a little bit reduced. Euro versus the dollar, we're last trading at 112.54, all waiting with bated breath on Draghi. How Spain's zombie bank rescue snares bondholders and how, but didn't trigger a market panic. That's Holger. Commodity markets, gold has been running towards $1,300 an ounce, but it's faltered again. We're now at 1286, and you'll remember this was the area where it was repelled last time. I'll put up a 6-month chart and just ask whether this is the second time we're seeing it being repelled, and therefore this is key now looking like key chart resistance. Big move in the oil market. WTI crude oil lost 5% to $45.76 a barrel. We're now at 46.14. Following its 1.7% advance on Tuesday, an unexpected increase in US crude and gasoline stockpiles stoked fears that the global supply glut will remain unabated. Here's another chart from business. My target for this contract is $32 a barrel. We're currently at 46. And I called it a Wizard of Oz moment. There's no one behind the curtain. And therefore my price target is $32 a barrel. The move has all the ingredients for turning exponential. It did exactly that yesterday. Some thought they would find a floor Friday. This is, I was writing in early May, 8th of May, but I expect them to be rudely awakened. It's a Wizard of Oz moment, folks. There is no one behind the curtain, and the market is primed to crash. Africa is increasingly moving to the center stage of global trade as its total trade tops $1 trillion in 2016, says Dr. Benedict Orama of Afreximbank. Congolese cling to election hopes, some fear the worst. The currency has lost more than half of its value in the past year. Inflation is nearing 30%, prompting comparisons with the later rule of Mobutu Sese Seko, who was eventually ousted by Kabila's father in a civil war that went on to kill millions. Today we have to ask the question, do we let Congo collapse again? Said Daniel Mukoko Samba, former budget minister under Kabila, referring to the 1990s. The administration is falling apart in the territories, areas outside Kinshasa, which have become practically uncontrollable. Large companies, even ones used to Congo's risk, are shying away. They're reluctant to speak on the record to avoid angering the government. But some of their actions suggest a move towards the exit. Freeport McMoran sold off its stake in the Tenke copper mine, one of the world's largest, cited a desire to reduce its debts, though analysts say the operating environment played an important role in the decision. Chamber of Commerce last week decried a deteriorating business climate in Congo's copper mining southeast, including harassment by tax authorities to the tune of over $300 million in what it said were bogus custom duties. Former Kabila Minister Mukoko, now an economics professor at Kinshasa University, said a decade after donors withdrew support from Mobutu Zaire, the country fell apart as war engulfed the East. If the government says to itself, we don't need a dialogue, we're going to do what we want, we are heading for disaster. Mobutu left due to a rebellion supported by the neighbouring countries. President Kabila has the support of the sub-region. He's been very careful to nurture that, actually. I don't think it looks very good. And the problem is that President Kabila could just dig his heels and fiddle and let it burn. South African all shares up 2.89% year to date. It's given up some of its gains. Dollar versus rand. The rand was expensive at 12.68. We're in this no man's land, which is 12.65 to 13.40 in my opinion. Egyptian pound 18.129, Nigerian all share up 21.63% and the 23-month highs. I remember a few weeks ago saying it was on the cusp of a bull market and it ramped into one subsequently. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 13.74% this year. Kenya to lower growth forecasts as drought cuts food production. This is the Treasury. Economic growth will probably be 5.7% this year, compared with an earlier estimate of 5.9% to 6%. The forecast may be reduced further to 5.5% once an assessment of the March to May range is completed. We are analysing some leading economic indicators to see if this drought has gone beyond quarter one, Rotich said. If that's the case, we may adjust our numbers a bit lower. Beyond agriculture, the momentum in the economy is still strong, he said, talking about the SGR and tourism, said it's also picking up. Cutting its forecast will bring the Treasury's estimate more in line with the World Bank and the IMF, which have cut their predictions to 5.5 and 5.3% respectively. We are aware that the caps potentially will constrain credit to small and medium-sized enterprises and other high-risk areas that used to enjoy credit, he said. As the impact of reforms is felt, maybe the caps will become redundant over a period of time. Credit to the private sector grew by 4% in March, the slowest pace since 2003, according to the central bank. We don't think that from our standpoint that the caps are going to be sustainable in our economy. Our preference is to let the markets decide, he said. I wrote about this 7th of March when my piece was called Where Meteorology Intersects with Monetary Policy, and I was dealing with these points. Lack of power lines delays Sub-Saharan Africa's biggest wind farm. The wind farm had planned to begin producing power this month, but construction of the transmission line to the power grid being built by state-run Kenya Transmission Company has been delayed. The challenge is now to get the wind farms connected to the grid, and that is indeed a project which is not with us, said the head of Vestas' Central European and Sub-Saharan African business, Niels de Baal, in an interview in Copenhagen. The expectation is that it will happen in early 2018, he said, adding that the project is Vestas' largest ever in terms of the number of wind turbines being installed. The 428-kilometre power line from Loyangalani in northern Kenya to Suswa in the centre of the country was due to be completed by October last year. But demand for compensation from landowners along the route and other issues have delayed it. This whole thing of buying out these landowners has become an enormous racket. Kenya election body denies awarding deal to blocked company. Kenya's Electoral Commission said it's yet to decide which company will print ballot papers for elections being held in 2 months after a local newspaper said the deal had been handed to a Dubai-based firm whose contract had been blocked twice. We are still working on it, said Andrew Lehman. Very interesting tweet I came across from Privacy International, new piece on voter profiling in the 2017 Kenya election. This is all about Cambridge Analytica, who is believed to have been retained by the government, who proved very effective in getting Donald Trump elected, and saying that they're going to go for the low base effect, as it were. Kenya shilling, steady as you like, 103.35. Nairobi all share up 0.7% yesterday, up 11.96% this year, 0.52% below a 22-month high reached on the 2nd of June. NSE 20 has closed at a 10-month high, and that's up 9% so far this year. Thank you for stopping by.